Well, every couple of months here on Island Morning, it is a pleasure to put the focus on our pets with our Pets and People column. And joining us once again here in the studio is Dr. Marty Hobson, veterinarian, along with Jake is back.
Good old Jake.
Good old Jake. How old is Jake now,
Jake
Marty?
is 14 and
Wow.
stone cold deaf.
Okay. So he's not taking this in this morning.
No, but he loves being here, Matt. You know he does.
So he's curled up all on the floor here, just
Totally
relaxed.
asleep.
It's a very relaxing experience being here, Marty. Now, we're talking, though, about a not-so-relaxing topic, and that is ticks, because this is actually Tick Awareness Month.
Yeah,
Is that right?
March is Tick Awareness Month, and the Canadian Veterinary Medical Association wants pet owners to know the risks and prevention methods, and they want you to know it right now.
And that's what you're going to tell us about, but do we need to be aware of ticks this early in the year?
Yeah, we used to think of ticks along the same lines as fleas or heartworm, that it was more of a warm weather issue. But now things have really changed over the last 20 years, Matt. So just to review, what we're concerned about are the black-legged ticks, and you can also call them deer ticks or ixodes. And they carry Borrelia. It's a spiral-shaped bacteria. It looks fun like confetti at a party, but it causes Lyme disease. And Lyme disease, we didn't even know about until the 1970s, but it's probably been around a lot longer. So these ticks were initially found in Canada in the 70s, but only at Long Point in southern Ontario. And until the 1990s, Matt, that was the only place in Canada that they were found. So it's just over the last 20 years that we have seen a massive spread of these types of ticks. Their life cycle is multiple years. So they get on an animal or a human, take a blood meal, drop off, and molt into larger life stages. And they overwinter under the snow, and the first hosts are the mice. That's where they pick up the bacteria, and birds. And then as adults, they're supposed to feed on larger mammals like deer. But at any time, they could accidentally end up on a human or a dog. And in the nymph and adult stages, they can affect their accidental hosts, that's us and our pets, with this Borrelia bacterium, and that may result in clinical Lyme disease.
And cases of Lyme disease in people, they've been increasing, haven't they?
It is crazy. So since 2004, the number of Lyme disease cases in humans has skyrocketed. In 2004, it was under 50. And in 2016, it was closer to 1,000 cases of documented Lyme disease. So there's been a huge explosion in the number of areas where black-legged ticks are found. And the percentage of ticks that are positive for the bacteria has also increased. Some sources would say from 10% to up to 40% of these ticks have this bacteria inside them. There's 4 main areas in Canada: Ontario, Quebec, Manitoba, and Nova Scotia, Matt. Looking at the maps, the increase in Nova Scotia is huge with the number of places where these ticks are found and also the human cases of Lyme disease.
Do we have numbers for PEI?
We do have numbers. They are still very low. I think we're protected a little bit being on an island, although they do explain the increase in the places where they're found with global warming, and although we're experiencing that as well, I think they just haven't gotten to us yet. So we haven't seen the increase in number of Lyme disease cases that other areas have seen. But I want to stress that this could be coming, and then they've done models for the future. And in the next 10 to 20 years, if you look at it, PEI could be covered with tick cases.
And this is, as we were saying, Tick Awareness Month, March. And so there is still snow on the ground, but we can still see that they can be as active as early as March?
Yeah, we know that anytime the temperature is 4 degrees Celsius or higher, ticks can be active. And they don't need a sustained high temperature the way the heartworm parasite needs in a mosquito. So they're not a risk every day of the year, but they're probably a risk on some days in every month. So, for example, even December, you can think of some Decembers where there'd be a day or two over 4 degrees, and January and February. So there's no month anymore where you could say there's no way my dog could pick up a tick. And another risk that you can take note of is that whenever you see exposed ground or vegetation, they can be active and kind of come up on that vegetation and attach to you. So if there's a huge deep snowfall and everything's covered in snow, it's probably not a risk. But as soon as there's that exposed ground and temperatures over 4 degrees, they can crawl up and attach to you or your dog.
So really a year-round risk here.
Yes, yeah, definitely. It sounds really scary, and I want to stress I don't want people to be alarmed by this, but it's something to be aware of. And just because your dog gets a tick, it doesn't mean that it's going to have clinical Lyme disease. Fewer than 5% of dogs right now that are infected with Borrelia develop clinical signs. And if they do usually recover with treatment, but a small number of dogs will go on to have quite serious and chronic problems, and we don't know which dogs are going to become ill and how ill they will get.
Now, what should people do then? How do we take those precautions?
Yeah, there's a 3-part approach that people can speak to their veterinarians about and decide what their plan should be. So some people could be comfortable with the risk and choose not to do any of these things, and that's okay. But everyone should be making educated choices.
What are the steps?
So step 1 would be to tick check your dog and yourself. That's important too. It's easier on you than on your hairy pet. And this is free, so this is great. You should definitely do this if you visit an area with a high incidence of Lyme disease, like certain parts of Nova Scotia. If you do have a tick bite, there's 36 to 48 hours before the bacteria can get into you. So checking yourself and your dog every day is a great tool. And step 2, Matt, are tick prevention products. And there's a variety of medications that can be given by mouth or that you spot on topically onto the skin. But be wary of the kind that you see in the hardware stores. Because they're not being sold by a veterinarian, they're pesticide-based and chemical-based. And they can be quite toxic, especially to cats. Generally, the stuff that's sold at your vet's office is going to be safer. There's also tick collars, and they can be effective and can be used. But no preventative is 100% guaranteed. And the cons are that some dogs can have reactions. There's no medication that's 100% safe. And they also can be quite expensive. So again, it depends on your risk comfort level. Some people may choose not to use these, and that's fine, but make an educated choice.
What about for the very relaxed Jake who's lying at my feet here? Is he on a preventative?
Actually, no, he's not at this time. And he's actually been exposed to Borrelia. He will test positive on a tick test. And that's most likely from travel to Connecticut, where he used to go. But he never became sick. So he's one of those 95% of dogs that test positive but was never ill. But the interesting thing that I just learned is that he could get exposed again at any time. So being exposed and testing positive does not mean that you're immune to Lyme disease. He could get sick again if he had a tick bite. My risk comfort level is I'm comfortable checking him and not putting him on a tick preventative at this time.
And you know what you're looking for. So, okay, checking and then preventative products. What's the third step?
Well, there are vaccines, Matt, and this is a little more controversial. It's thought that some of the vaccines aren't that reliable and they have to be boosted frequently, and there can be a high risk of side effects. But for dogs that are at very high risk, that are in endemic areas and are going out into areas where there's lots of ticks, speak with your veterinarian. It may be something that you choose to use.
Just in terms of heading outside with the pet, thought the ticks kind of only hung out in long grasses. So is it safer if I avoid those kinds of areas?
Yeah, that's what we used to tell people, but we do know that they live under the leaf layer on forest floors. So it's wooded areas that are probably actually the most dangerous. And ticks only travel a few meters in their whole lifetime, but they hatch in these huge clusters. So if you've made contact with one, probably you've stumbled into a bunch of them. So maybe your closely cropped lawn is okay if you have a little, lap dog and they only go outside. But where your lawn borders the woods, if you walk in the woods, those are areas where you're going to encounter ticks. So, Matt, you've got to tuck your pants into your socks, as dorky as that may look. Do tick checks frequently on all the humans and the dogs in your family, and talk to your vet about what strategy is right for you.
Good advice for Tick Awareness Month. I'm sorry to see both you and Jake go, Marty, but thanks for coming in.
Thanks for having us, Matt.
Dr. Marty Hobson with our Pets and People column.